Today's Power Lunch is brought to you by The Palm in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. Sure, The Palm is great for a fancy night out, but it's also the perfect midweek spot for a lunch with a client, or lunch to catch up with a friend, or maybe even to do an interesting podcast like this. Power Lunch menu selections at The Palm start at $26 for an appetizer, meal, and dessert. Book your reservation today directly at thepalm.com, open table, or by calling them at 703-917-0200.
I can make most anything on the menu except...
Whatever you got is fine.
I'm gonna say some bad words. You're just gonna have to deal with it.
PB&J with the crusts cut off. Well, Brian, this is a very nutritious lunch.
Hey, you got enough money to pay for all this? You know, money, cash, dollars, dinero.
So what I believe you were trying to say is thank you.
Thank you?
You're welcome. What can I say?
And
yeah, you're lucky.
This is such old man talk.
It is it's so sexy, isn't it?
Anyway, I hope this is the one that's all over.
Is this in the book, Still Barking? The old man talk of everyone's maladies?
Maybe a little bit.
JP wrote a book. God,
are we on? Is this the show?
We roll into it. I like to ease into it. This is the show. This is
right,
like
cool.
what you guys do. So you wrote a book.
Yes.
And it was all your idea, or did you guys say, hey, JP, you should write a book about our show?
No, I actually told him I'd rather you not, to be honest with you. But
you lobbied against it.
Kind of. But not strongly. I mean, it's his story too, but as far as I was concerned, is that I didn't want to necessarily rehash all of the drama from, you know what I mean? I don't want to rehash old fights, and I don't know. Old stuff I had maybe with DJs or bosses. Like, I didn't necessarily want to rehash it.
Okay.
It's just for me. You know what I mean? So I'm perfectly happy just not having a book. But at the end of the day, I've read half of it, and I'm glad that he did archive what we've done throughout our career, because, you know, being in the middle of it, when you look back on it, if you ever just like sit and have a glass of wine or something and you look back on your career and you remember like, that's right, we were at the Grammys, or we were, you know, at 10 Super Bowls, or, you know, we did talk to LeBron James's mom before he turned pro, and you know what I mean? All these things that you did and you forget. So I am glad at the end of the day that he archived it, but I did lobby against it, to be fair.
Did you pay him, JP?
Did I pay him?
For the book.
I'm sprinkling a little sugar. And when I mean a little. Some little bonus structure with the Junkies and our producers.
Did EB sit down with you for an exclusive follow-up?
No, the truth is, I actually
sent a few emails.
I talked to a couple people along the way, and I didn't know. I was like, hey, so I'm writing this book. Should I pay the other guys on the show? And they all said, hell no. They were like, who wrote the book? Did they write any chapters? I was like, no. It was a weird thing.
Lurch Papa had to get paid.
Lurch Papa has not been paid other than the little bonuses that I've sprinkled,
He's smart.
so that if we have, like tomorrow I have an appearance at Bourbon Boulevard, which is actually a client of the radio station.
Ding, ding, ding. If you're in D.C., go to Bourbon Boulevard. Where is it, JP?
That is in Chantilly, Virginia. I'll be there from 4 to 6, and I think Jason's going to pop over there. I said, hey, if we've got appearances that are close by, pop over. Eric showed up to one actually in Leesburg because he was playing pickleball nearby, and he popped over there, and it's been kind of cool. You know, the way that I look at it is when I have grandchildren, they'll be able to see the book and see what their granddad did for a living. So there's the archiving aspect, and I've talked about this. I still remember we were at Lurch's house on his back deck 25 years ago deciding if we were actually going to give it a go. At the time, WJFK.
This was before the cable access show.
This is after the cable access show. We started doing weekend radio, making $75 a weekend. And they gave us a shot, an 8-week tryout to take over for the Grease Man at night.
How about a gaga? How about a gee?
And Cakes at the time was a manager at Toys R Us. I know it sounds trifling, but he had a wife, he had a kid, he had a 401k, and he had to make a decision. Really, he was kind of the last cog because the rest of us
of Toys R Us management.
He was about to get triple matched on his 401k, like it was an actual thing. He talked about it.
Well,
but we sat.
Toys R Us is out of business now.
We sat on. We were like having a few drinks, sitting on Jason's back deck, and it was like, are we going to go for it? And I kind of go back to that moment and kind of what EB said looking back on it. So we obviously decided yes, and 25 years later, we're still going strong. But there's no way we could have predicted we'd be doing it for 25 years, that we'd go to Super Bowls and do all the things that you do take for granted when you're doing it day after day. But looking back, we've been lucky.
At what point did you feel like, okay, we're now safe?
I don't think you ever really feel safe. I think like halfway through you feel like, well, we're screwed because we don't know how to do anything else. Like, he's got a law degree, but I mean, he's not really going to practice law. I have a master's in education. In theory, I could be a high school guidance counselor. I've done it 26 years.
Could you imagine that interview, too?
Yeah.
They'd say, how are you qualified? You held bikini contests? Like, you know what I mean?
No, I mean, you're a radio lifer. I mean, there's nothing. You're never going to stop. Like, so are we. So, like, this is.
There is no plan B.
This is it. Yeah.
There's no other marketable skills.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll say this, though, to answer your question, and I write about this in stillbarking.com to buy the book. When we started out, I was studying for the bar exam, and we're starting, and we're all in, right? We start full-time, taking over the show at night. And at the time...
What'd they pay you, by the way?
Not that much. I think it was $100 per show. And I think I actually negotiated a bump per person.
Yeah.
I negotiated a bump because
$500
I acted as our agent.
Yeah.
We got a bump to $110 per show.
Sweet.
So during those first 8 weeks. So it's a tryout period. And we don't know. We're not working under a contract. We don't know what the future is. We take over at nights for the Grease Man. At the time,
what station again?
WJFK. At the time, it is Howard Stern in the morning, Don and Mike in the afternoons, G. Gordon Liddy, and then the Junkies at night. These 4 26, 27-year-old guys starting out.
From where in Maryland?
Bowie.
Yeah. The Bowie boys.
Jason's actually from Lanham, but 3 of us grew up in Bowie within a block of each other. And went to kindergarten together and school together and all that stuff. But our very first fall ratings book, everybody at the station was number 1. We hit number 1. And I felt like, okay, I don't know if I was going to predict 25 years.
You're like, rip up the law degree, but I'm in radio, baby.
We're in the mix.
Well, I actually knew when they gave us a shot and we met with them, as we were driving, I remember it vividly. We were leaving, 123 or whatever that is, Route 50, about to turn onto 123, and we were at the stoplight, and we had just had the meeting, and they were going to give us a shot, and I just remember putting my head in my hands and going, oh, my God, this is going to hit. This is going to hit because we're not starting in Iowa. We're not starting in Salisbury. We are starting at a monster.
Market 5,
We're starting at a monster.
And a hell of a station.
It's a monster superstation, and they're going to promote us. So, I mean, like, I have a lot of issues with some of the guys maybe that I worked with, but I will give them credit. They put us over at the very beginning.
They gave you the company push.
They gave us the company push, and I'm like, we're going to hit. This is going to hit. And I was also not to be cocky because I still to this day don't think we particularly have radio talent, like skills going in and out of break and that sort of thing. But I knew we had chemistry. And I'm like, I know that people enjoy listening to us bullshit, for lack of a better phrase. And so people are going to like this. This is going to hit because Don Geronimo is going to put us over, and 250,000 people are going to check us out, and they're going to buy in because Don says it's interesting, and so
funny. Don is on my list of one-name reactions, but I don't know if I want to get to that yet.
yeah. I mean, he's a complicated guy.
That's I'm sure that's what I get. So
and we sounded different at the time. Like now there are a lot of shows.
You were the sports junkies then,
right?
Now you're just the junkies.
I don't know. We're still the sports junkies. To me, that doesn't matter. Like people just know us as a group of guys. Yeah, that's a marketing thing.
Huh.
We've gone back
Technically, 106.7 The Fan calls us the sports junkies.
Okay.
But when we were on the rock station, we became the junkies. Like, to me, that doesn't really matter. But going back to 1997, when we start full-time, almost every sports show, and you know this at the time, was modeled after Mike and the Mad Dog.
Right.
So we grew up in D.C. All right, Kornheiser was a little bit unique, but you had Doc and Dan. It would be an athlete with, like, a radio guy. Or what else was there? Kylie and the Coach. Mm-hmm. That was kind of the model. It was always 2 guys, and all of a sudden we were kind of like 4 frat boys on the air. Ironically, none of us in frats, just having fun. And back in the early days,
your frat was the radio show,
right?
That everybody who listened could pledge and join,
right? Yes. And we had music going on in the background at least the first couple of years.
And we didn't act like know-it-alls. Like, I mean, we're sports nerds, and so we'd fight with you and stuff, but we didn't act like my opinion was better than your opinion.
Yeah.
But I'll argue with you about
the rushing average of
no. So, and I think that was key, right? Self-deprecating, and no one will ever give us credit for this, but I do think we're largely responsible for just like the more chill aspect. Every show now's got 4 guys. Every show has 4 guys. It's not a big deal. People used to ask us, how are you going to survive with 4 guys? We go, I don't know.
Are there 4 guys paid, though?
You mean in other shows? I don't know what other shows are doing.
Well, because a lot of radio companies now, they don't want to pay 2 guys.
Well, our radio company don't want to pay 4 guys. So going back to the whole salary talk, we do the 8-week tryout. I don't think we had a contract for well over a year. We worked without a contract, and eventually we got our first agent, which was actually Jason's uncle. He only lasted 1 contract.
What background did Jason's uncle
He was a lawyer.
Okay.
He was a lawyer. That was enough. And I think that first contract was for roughly $40,000.
Okay.
But it took us a year, and I lost my train of thought.
No, that's fine. So I'm guessing, I feel like EB's the Hannibal of the A-team, the leader.
I think
I've always felt like you are.
I'm just maybe the louder one.
Lurch is like Mr. T. He's like him. I would say you're like Face. You're the smooth talker, JP. And I'd say Cakes is like Murdoch, the crazy one.
You could go with that. So
who is the leader of the Junkies?
I don't think there's a leader. We're a group.
You don't think?
And what I was going to say, now I remember my thing, is that when we had that first contract negotiation, the station said, "Well, you guys don't need 4 guys." And that happened throughout our career. When we would try and make more money, they were like, well, this is our budget. You guys have 4 guys.
Right.
What if Cakes goes back to Toys R Us?
They often, and to their credit, maybe, they said, well, why don't we just put 2 of you in the mornings, 2 of you in the afternoons? You know what I mean? We'll just kill 2 time slots. Now, we knew that wasn't going to work.
Typical cheap-ass radio suit thinking.
Right.
I've got 20 at the blackjack table. Let me split them and make more money and fuck up the hand.
Right. So you went with the A-team. So if you read the prologue of the book,
yes,
one of my buddies who's not really a listener of our show and didn't know that much about the history of the Junkies told me he read chapter 1, which is really about how we're friends and grew up together.
This is Mark Roberge, the lead singer of
Roberge now is a forward.
Okay.
But there's a prologue, which I wrote.
Prologue
and he planted an idea into my head. He goes, this reminds me of Entourage.
It is very
so
Entourage.
I actually put each of us into Entourage characters. EB is Johnny Drama.
Okay.
Cake's clearly Turtle. I am like the boring one. I'm E.
Okay.
And then I've got Lurch as Vincent Chase, because Lurch, he has this life where he looks at a text machine throughout the show, and all of a sudden a guy offers him to go to Pebble Beach on a private jet.
Yeah.
He doesn't pay 1 cent for any of this. He's now gone to Pebble Beach 2 or 3 times.
He's America's guest.
He's America's guest.
Yeah, he's pulled it off.
So I hadn't really thought of the A-team thing. If I write a sequel or a new book.
And I think that's one key for us, is that we've always known that our strength is the 4 of us. You know, so anytime they would try to split us up or anything, you're like,
I was going to say,
it's not going to work.
Have you ever looked at each other like it's like a game of Survivor? Like, I think EB is conspiring against me. I think, someone's trying to get me off the show. Have you ever worried about that?
No.
I mean, I know friendship is thick, 25 years.
No, I think it's different. If we were put together by some other entity, by management or something, that might happen.
Okay.
But we came in together, right? So we're going in together, we're going out together.
So you knew that you hang
and I always
together
say this,
or
Zabe,
hang separately.
I say this, Zabe. Look, I've known Eric since I was 3 years old. He claims to remember the first time that our parents got us together. I don't really remember it that much.
Date?
Yeah, but we were friends before. Like, I was best man at his wedding, vice versa. Like, we'll be friends after. Like, at some point, we'll be replaced by Cheaper and Younger. We understand this.
Right.
It'll end. But, our families became tight. And our moms used to do a birthday group. Okay? No, I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
And our moms would go out to lunch even in the last year before my mom passed away this year. They would go to lunch together. So we are connected for life.
But like a band...
That is true.
Bands break apart because you're so close to everyone. You get used to their things that piss you off.
Right. Well, give me $50 million, and then maybe I'll say it.
There was never a time where we're like, okay, we need to settle this. Have you ever had any closed door meetings with just the show going, all right, this is bothering me. We got to fucking fix this?
I don't know if it's closed door. We just say it during a commercial break. Just start yelling at each other. Yeah,
We've had a handful of meetings probably in the history of the show.
Any physical fights?
We've had one tiny little physical fight.
One time where I tackled JP.
Yeah.
Did you get him good?
On air.
Okay.
No, it just became like a little headlock thing. The thing which, and I write about this in the book too, we're brothers, right? Brothers are going to fight. Like, I
Sure.
fight with my brother all the time. You're still brothers. You can have a stupid little argument, and generally speaking, 10 minutes later, you're just moving on.
Yeah. What's the dumbest idea anyone in management ever suggested to you guys about the show or about something you should do or just some
I know where you're going.
dumb shit?
Well, I remember we were in a meeting at HFS, and well, there was a couple things so they're very pop culture-y, and just I don't know. We were instinctive. Our whole pitch has always been, if we're interested in it, we'll talk about it. We'll make it interesting. Like, we'll let her talk about anything, and if it's interesting to us, hopefully we'll make it interesting for you, right? But they were like,
at least if it's interesting to like one or two of the guys, because I'll say like Cakes and I aren't big golf fans, but we probably talk more golf on our show because EB and Lurch are passionate.
As long as a couple of the guys are passionate about it, we'll make it work.
Yeah.
But then I remember Jay Stevens came in and very successful, and he's like, "You guys didn't talk about Fast and the Furious, man. What's going on? Fast and Furious #1 in the box office. How can you guys not talk about Fast and Furious?" And we're like, "We don't give a shit about Fast and the Furious. It's not my thing. Sorry." But then we had meetings.
By the way, that was Fast and the Furious 1.
Yeah.
We didn't know there was going to be 10 of them.
Yeah. No, but the point is we would have these weekly meetings, and they would bring up things like this. And there was one in particular where I took my glasses off, and I thought, I'm going to have to throw down the GM here, because he wanted us to add the Wonkette to our show. So do you remember when she was popular 15 years ago? Yeah, in the early 2000s.
She's a political
Yeah.
person.
He's like,
that's fucking death for you guys.
Yeah.
Politics. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That would have been as bad as Poochie the dog in The Simpsons.
But that was during the days. So going back to HFS, we did nights for 5 years. And then due to some circumstances, Opie and Anthony had this scandal.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, we had this opportunity to move to mornings, which means more money.
Yeah.
You're in prime time. And all of a sudden, you're competing now, because at nights on WJFK, we were crushing it, finishing #1 almost every ratings book. Now, all of a sudden, you're heading to the station, which is finishing in like 15th place.
Right.
And you need to climb the rankings.
You're
and
gonna
get
be
up there
brought-
with Stern and Elliot in the morning. And so we went from this life where it was laissez-faire, do your own thing, as long as you're getting the results, which you are, you can do whatever you want, to all of a sudden having meetings, which we weren't used to.
Well,
Jason Lurch used to have a rule. We would walk into the meeting and he'd go, no small talk. Because if all of a sudden
it's a meeting.
Right, it just prolongs the meeting. So we just wanted to hear, okay, you got a concert coming up, we got to do these giveaways, whatever, we're out.
Yeah.
He immediately wanted to get in fact, I think Jason used to actually stand kind of like halfway out the doorway. I mean, it was completely disrespectful.
I go into meetings about as loquacious as a murder suspect.
Yeah.
Right.
I literally won't say a thing. And let that awkward silence permeate the room to remind everyone, okay, we done here? Let's go.
Well, see, I would have a problem with that, because I would get very defensive. So if they started saying stuff that I didn't like, couldn't take it.
EB would get very defensive.
And Jason would go nuts, and JP would just laugh. But I'm like, I can't, I get defensive. You
just stick up for your show.
Yeah, I mean, it's our shit. This is what we're doing.
But they were having those meetings because, we hadn't gotten to #1 yet. And the thing is, eventually we started climbing. And then once you start climbing the rankings, then all of a sudden those suggestions of the Fast and the Furious, the Wonkette,
start tailing off.
They start tailing off, as long as you get the results.
Yeah, well, you were brought in as the shiny toy, the shiny object, and a big expensive purchase to lift the station out of the muck.
Right.
And that's what you did.
Kind of.
Well,
no, the problem is we got there.
We jumped aboard the Titanic.
But then they changed formats.
Right.
And they folded up shop.
Well, no, but the problem is that we ended up having a huge audience and bringing our own audience in. But then at 10, when they start playing the music again, everyone would bail.
Turn right out. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can't help that.
I know.
I can't make people stick around and listen to Fall Out Boy.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just a different crowd.
I wouldn't be surprised if they would try to say, but you got to convince them to do it somehow.
Yeah, we tried.
And those were some of the little fights we had along the way, because we signed this contract, we moved to mornings, it's a great opportunity. And I write about this. The very first meeting we had, the program director goes, okay, and you guys got to play 8 songs an hour. We're just doing the math. 8 times 3, that's
8
24.
an hour.
I was like, when are we going to talk?
Right.
I was like, you signed us up because we're #1 over here, and you're failing playing music over here. Why do you want us playing music?
See the logic? They want us to do what everyone else that failed did. I mean, it makes no sense.
So eventually you kind of meet halfway, and it works out. And the truth is, it's weird. We've been doing it for 25 years. Those 2+ years we were at HFS were probably the most fun we ever had.
Some of the most enjoyable years. Yeah.
Even though there was the pain in the ass with the meetings, all of a sudden we're on stage watching Jay-Z and Beyonce like 5 feet away from us, watching Jay-Z.
The musical hookups were probably the best they've ever done.
You had bands come in and playing for you live in the studio. It was amazing.
That was one of the rare times in our career where corporate was 100% invested in you.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, you guys want to do this for promotion? Okay, let's make it happen. They had promotional fans. They had people. Right. Even like we did a lot of wacky ideas. Look, we had a porno swap. We had satellite locations, and we would do all these things. We did a Daisy Dukes contest, which was women with bags on their heads.
When did the sundress party end? In the age of political correctness, you don't do that anymore.
We didn't necessarily accept that because of the political correctness. Some of the other stuff we did, we would do a spring break party at the theater. What's that called?
We did it at State Theater.
State Theater many times. We got 1,000 people out there.
But one of your big events every year was the spring sundress.
Right. Well, it became the sundress. So we did the spring break party before, which goes back really to the HFS years. EB said one time, during these meetings, the meetings which we hated. Every once in a while, a good idea would pop up.
But not from them.
Right, but EB was saying, at the time, MTV used to have, you would see MTV Spring Break, and they would have these contests and concerts, and the idea was, maybe we should do something kind of like that. And so that's where it started, and it became this big monster. What I like to say is, our listeners... It's this monster, and every once in a while you got to feed the monster.
Sure.
How would we feed the monster? We would do a spring break party where people get liquored up and have beer. You'd have a bikini contest.
So why'd that go away?
Because when we were 40 years old, we sat on stage, and we've got 12-year-old daughters.
And you realize,
and we're like, what are we doing?
Well, you have a lesbian couch, and you get your guys are banging balloons on stage, and it's just like
sounds great.
It is until
except when you have daughters.
It's still about mid 45, 46, and you're like, I think this time maybe it's past.
Did either one of your wives ever pull you aside and say, honey, I just don't know about this stuff you're doing on the air? Or
not in a serious
way. Give you any feedback come on?
Well, it may be early on a few times, because we'd have porn stars in the studio. I mean, the stuff that we did in the studio I won't even admit to.
Too bad it's in the book. Still Barking, available at stillbarking.com, right?
Thank you.
There you go.
No, so sometimes they give us a hard time about stuff, but after a while, I think they kind of understood that it was just us, playing the game.
Okay, so that was cool there.
And I'll say this. I used to have this debate with my mom. She would remember the parts that we're talking about that maybe are embarrassing, maybe you should do a little cringy as we look back on it. And I'd be like, Mom, we do 60 segments a week.
Right.
And you're going to remember the one time I used the B word. I was like, what is the percentage? Just do the math. So the spring break party, that's once a year. When you're cranking out hundreds of shows and hundreds of segments, even the porn stars, people go, oh, I remember we had Jenna Jameson on. Do you know how many hundreds of guests we had on the show?
Right.
But people will remember that one thing. It's just a small element of the show.
Yeah. Would you guys do it again if you had
I would.
chance?
Yeah, I don't think I would change anything, really.
So you'd take a run at it again, knowing how perilous the industry is. There's a ton of guys now who are like, hey, I want to do this. I got buddies.
Yeah.
I can do it.
Well, we always encourage them, too. I actually think it's easier now than ever in some ways because you just start a podcast. You don't have to do cable act. Any guy can start a podcast.
Yeah, but
market it yourself.
Yeah, but there's an ocean of podcasts that are going nowhere, making no money.
No, for sure.
Sure, but that could have happened to us, too.
How do you forge a career, though, with an actual salary and benefits?
Well, you have to
create your own luck, which is what I think we did.
You have to have good content.
We didn't just all of a sudden appear at JFK. We did our cable access show for a year, religiously. He drove back from Philly while he was in law school religiously. People thought he was stupid. What are you doing driving back for this dumb cable show that literally no one was watching? But we had our own professional standard that we were trying to achieve. And then after a year, we said, you know what? No one's watching it, but it's actually kind of funny. It's not bad. Let's send out tapes to TV critics, and maybe they'll write something about it in the paper, and then maybe a radio station will call. And that's what happened.
Yeah. Well,
so, in other words, we created it.
Not to discount the hard work, but I think the landscape has changed to the point where no radio company is going to employ 4 guys full time to do a single show.
Maybe you just got to work your way. I mean,
if you build a following, though,
how are you going to do that? I don't know. I don't know.
My daughter has over 400,000 people on her TikTok. How did that happen? You can make things happen.
How many?
Over 400,000.
Your daughter.
Yes.
What's her TikTok?
I don't even have TikTok. You can look it up. Kelsey Flame, Google it. Kelsey Flame TikTok.
And what's her hook?
She's at The Hungry Foodie. She does quick food reviews.
Okay. Does she monetize that?
She monetizes it quite well. I'll give you the number afterwards of what she made last month.
That's fantastic.
Add 3 zeros to this.
Okay. Wow.
No, but I think
that's fantastic.
But I think because of social media and because of the everyone can have a podcast.
The access, EB, to the environment is easier than ever, but the market is more flooded.
That's
and
true.
the economics of the companies that have money and are actually paying salaries are getting tighter and tighter all the time.
No, you got to hit.
I don't know of another show in the country that's got 4 full-time guys.
Understood.
Right
but
now,
if you can build a following,
Two full-time and a contributor or
how
two.
did Pat McAfee become so big?
He built his own brand.
Okay, well that's the point. It may be it may be hard to achieve.
Right.
It may be very hard to achieve, but you can build up a following like locally.
I mean, that's kind of what we did. We built our brand.
I've become friends with this guy.
I'm not discounting the work that went into it.
There's good fortune.
I'm talking about the current landscape is interesting because it's challenging. And yeah, McAfee is an amazing story, but I mean, a lot of that's just gambling money that's coming in, which I'm skeptical. How long is that going to last?
I don't think it'll last, but if you get 60 million of it, who cares?
Well, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Once you get it, just put it away, and then you're good to go.
I mean, it all comes down to, and I don't know the numbers, Pat McAfee obviously has a tremendous following. He's built it up. He was smart when he was a player. He built connections.
Well, he's good.
The Barstool connection was huge for him. That's where he built the platform.
He's a good personality, which carries the day. If he was not a good personality, he wouldn't carry the day.
Look, I'm not saying it's likely. Like, if you lined up 20 people that all said, I want to break into the business like the Junkies, how many of them are going to be able to make it? I don't know. But you have the opportunity to make it.
Sure. So I'm going to throw some names out here. Just want to get your reactions. A little chum in the water. Dan Snyder.
You could go first.
Come on, EB.
The thing is, he's an enigma to me. So I don't know him. I mean, I think he's a terrible owner, and he's probably a borderline terrible person, but I just don't know him. He's what I mean?
Have you ever met him?
Personally, no. I got a phone call from Tony Wiley one time that Dan loved the article I wrote defending the name. That's as close as I've ever gotten. So no
phone call from the PR guy
saying Dan loved this, wanted you to know, whatever.
I think Cakes
JP,
walked by him
why
one
is
time.
EB pulling his punches on Snyder here on a podcast?
What am I going to say?
You've said worse on the air. I've heard you go on. You're like, this guy is the worst human being ever. We're cursed. We're never going to win. This is your utter despair.
He's probably afraid.
No, I don't disagree with that.
Now it sounds like you're sort of trimming your sails.
No, I'm not. I don't know the guy. I mean, I think he's a dirtball. I mean, I have nothing good to say about him.
What does it take to know a guy? Don't we know him by now, boys?
Well, no, I don't.
Yes, we know him from living with him and hearing about him.
Actions.
Tell me you don't have stories from people who know.
Yes.
You guys are more connected than I am. I've got Cooley stories about Snyder that would peel your eyelids back.
Yeah.
And many, many others for when they owned our station. We had stories about him.
I'm not going to speak for EB, but I think he's coming from, we've already said it all. Like, what is there to say? You know what I mean? Like, Dan Snyder's not a good guy, and he's a loser as an owner.
Okay, fair enough.
That's kind of the...
Okay, Ted Leonsis.
I like Ted, and I respect Ted, and, we actually got to know him years and years ago, and we probably haven't seen him in person in many, many years. And who knows how involved he is with these type of things? But somehow we were part of the Capitals parade.
He put you guys in the parade and gave you rings.
We got freaking Capitals
Yeah, but I'm not
rings.
sure he had anything to do with it. I mean, he
probably didn't.
He probably was like, all right. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't think it was his idea.
And were you guys, when they said that, you're going to be in the parade, what'd you think?
Well, it was unbelievable. And you really can't do it justice until you actually do it, and then you're like, oh my God, it's the two parades that we've been in, and let's be honest, the reason why we were in the parades is because our station was the rights holder.
Right.
And then we were kind of...
does not happen in every market.
Maybe
with
not.
every rights holder. Well, maybe not.
I don't know.
I think you guys were very lucky.
I think we were very lucky.
I don't think there's a lot of cities where they
question.
would put a morning show just because it's on the station that carries the game in the parade.
And again, that's why I go back to that moment sitting on Jason's back deck. Who would have thunk it?
Well, I
like
think
it's impossible to think
I know.
that we're there. Cakes is legitimately deciding if he's going to leave Toys R Us to pursue a radio career
And he
because
ends
it's
up
only
in
an 8-week
two-
tryout.
Yeah, he ends up in 2 championship parades for the hometown teams and has 2 rings.
Correct.
Pretty fucking good,
Let me
right?
tell you something, though. Those parades are probably 2 of the 3 or 4 highlights of our career. Because
I was going to say, is there anything higher?
I'm not sure.
Hard
I'm not
to
sure that
imagine.
there is because we kind
The
of
Turkey Bowl.
The Turkey Bowl was amazing.
What was
I mean,
that?
We drew 9,000 fans when we beat the Divas in
Oh, that's right.
a
You
football
played.
game.
You played the professional women's football.
No,
team.
seriously.
You're looking at the MVP.
Well, no, Steve. We outdrew the Georgetown Hoyas that day. I'll never forget it. We had over 8,000 people there. We had TV stations covering it. We had a band. We had a charity drive. We had a donkey out. I mean, it was unbelievable what we did.
What'd you play?
Tight end and linebacker, I guess.
Yeah. What'd you do in the game? What was your stats?
I had
And kicker, don't sleep on
Oh yeah, I
kicker.
had 4 extra points.
He was the only 3-way player on the team. Most of us were 2-way players.
Well, okay, so here's my stats.
Did you get your
4
shit?
for
Did you get
4?
your shit rocked by any of those gals?
Never, but I was scared. Hold on, they give you my stats. Jason had 2 completions. I believe I had both of them.
Yeah.
Right? So I had 2 completions, 2 sacks, a strip fumble, and 4 extra points. Good enough for MVP. But I did say before the match, there was some doubt because, we were all sort of athletic guys who played sports our whole lives, but none of us really played football.
Yeah.
I said, if we lose to women, with no disrespect, I mean, there's a physiological difference here. If we lose to women, I don't care how professional they are, we have to kill ourselves. It's over. Like, you have to die. And so on the very first play that I was going against this woman, I was playing tight end. She was like a linebacker, and she was dating one of the Ravens linebackers. I can't remember who she was, and she was snorting. And I've never hit a woman before, and I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm like, all right. And so, and then she comes up and she pops me right away.
You see the Fred Dean head slap.
Right, yeah, head slap right in my face, and I'm like, that bitch. And then I just took her and I threw her. All right, and then I was like, okay, we're gonna be fine. Because she did jolt me for a second because I wasn't quite ready for it. But then, obviously, we were stronger.
That was a one-time game.
Yeah.
But that was one of those things where we've done it a couple times in our career where if you do something that people don't know what's going to happen and it's intriguing,
They'll
that's
show
why
up.
we had thousands
Sure.
of people show up because we had this crazy idea. These women had been trying to come on our radio show like as legitimate guests. And we're like, why would we have the DC Divas on the show? Clinton Portis was on last week. We have actual members of the Washington football team. We've barely heard of you.
Not to be disrespectful, but we're trying to get an audience.
I hear
Right,
you.
and we would get kind of these weekly emails, and we created the idea, and it worked out really well.
Okay, here's another name for you. RG3.
RG3 was a phenomenon. I write about it in the book. There was nobody like him in terms of the Washington football team. Like that year, 2012, was awesome, really. Once they started rolling, the whole city was behind
Best
it.
year psychologically for the franchise under Snyder.
Oh, yeah, by far.
Because there was hope, there was a future, there was electricity, there was respect around the league.
Nobody
for
cared
RG3.
about the terrible stadium. Nobody cared about the parking.
Right.
The tickets were hot. It was amazing.
That said, he turned out to be someone completely different than what I thought.
Yeah, I mean,
I got snowed by him. I said, this guy is unnaturally mature. When
Yeah.
in fact, he was immature as
Well,
shit.
he's a narcissist.
And hated in the locker room.
Yeah.
Viscerally
Well,
hated
if you
it.
remember at the time, and you're a star out in like Milwaukee, but one of their writers he was like one of the 2 or 3 people that had a negative thought on him prior to the draft.
Oh, and people savaged that guy.
Do you remember it?
It was not Nolan Narwaki.
No,
he was the
maybe-
guy that ripped on Cam. prior
Maybe
to
it was
the draft.
Bob something from the
Bob
Sentinel.
McGinn.
I think it
Bob
might have been
McGinn,
Bob
yeah.
McGinn.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, listen, there's some talk that he's a me guy, that he's all about himself, and everyone just, that can't be true, that can't be true. Look how
Right.
charming he is.
Yeah.
And the guy nailed it.
Yeah, I know.
Nailed it.
But one thing I learned in the business is being right doesn't pay. Never pays.
Yeah.
Like, the foolish thing is I've always tried to be right as best I can, guessing, like, here's who's going to be good or not. That doesn't matter.
Nobody
it literally
cares.
doesn't.
But
Yeah.
RG3, really, 2012 was fun. But really, the 3 years of RG3, when you then were debating RG3 versus Kirk, I mean, it was great material for a radio show for sure.
Yeah. Bruce Allen.
Boob.
Oh, I have no regard for Bruce. I think I dislike him more than Dan.
I think EB, he challenged Bruce to a fight, and he would retire if Bruce beat him.
If Bruce beat me in a boxing match, I'd retire.
Oh, that's an awesome one. See, that would have drawn I would have come out for that.
Yeah. No, like let's do it. If I win, you quit.
Right.
If you win, I quit.
He did more damage than Vinny, right? Because he was a more evil Vinny. He was Machiavellian.
Yeah, it's just a used car salesman, just like the worst guy ever. We had dinner with him, and I was like, oh my God, I'm repulsed by this guy.
But how do you even
had dinner with
distinguish?
Bruce.
He did
table manners,
did he do table
ironically.
manners?
Yeah, he did table manners, but I don't think from the Palm. We did a couple
did it
seasons
from
here
the
Palm.
MGM or whatever it was, or
whatever
they call it.
Live.
Kornheiser.
Yeah. I think Kornheiser's awesome. I mean, I don't know him personally at all, and
Yeah.
Eric might attest to it. When we were growing up, not knowing that I was going to do sports radio, that was one of the guys I really liked.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
obviously, as a writer, that was one of the guys that I read that I liked.
Yeah, Wilbon.
Same thing. And Wilbon's been really cool to us. In fact, he was going to do a testimonial for the book. I talked to him, and he was really over the top nice. Didn't have to be. The thing is, he works for a big corporation. And I was like, you know what? Don't
They're
even
probably
worry
like,
about
no,
it.
you're not allowed to do that. Feinstein.
John's a complicated guy. What can I tell you? He and I go back. We disagree on most everything, but it's weird because I grew up idolizing the guy. I read all his stuff.
Right.
Season on the Brink, all the early books I've bought. I really enjoy his work, but sometimes we just get into it. So it's a complicated situation. What? Our listeners, he's very polarizing.
Yes.
But polarizing is good.
Yeah. At what point, to wrap up here, because our soup is here, you guys have been good with your time. Still Barking, the book out by J.P. Flame. Friendship, Brotherhood, and 25 Years of the Sports Junkies. We're going to edit that out.
That's okay.
25
Sports
years
Monkeys
of the
works.
Available at,
Don't edit it.
Available at stillbarking.com. You're shipping these out yourself. I saw that on social media. God bless
Somewhat.
you.
I'm working with the publisher doing it. In a way, it's good. By the time the books arrived from the printer, already over 2,000 were ordered. So to get 2,000 books out as fast as possible, I had to jump in. And yes,
all right.
I'm involved in the shipping.
Do we have another 25 years in you guys?
25 years.
I wanna be
I know.
alive, dude.
Yeah, I knew he was going to go to that. 25 years is probably a long ask. What I like to say, personally, I think EB is probably a radio lifer. I just know personality.
What's a good number?
There's
10?
4 guys.
I'm 53.
I think 15 years.
You guys are about the same age as me, right?
Right, we're 51.
You want 50, and will you at 65 be doing stuff that appeals to the younger audience out there, the kids?
I don't know that we actually do appeal to the kids anymore.
Well, you got to bring back the sundress
Exactly.
promotion. Bring back the lesbian couch. Bring back the football games. Now let the divas play you guys when you're a lot older and more arthritic.
No, then we might actually lose. Here's what I will say is that I don't know. I mean, as long as a company wants to pay us to keep coming on and doing this,
you'll take their money.
I'll take their money.
Yes.
And I don't really have I want to chill, but I will always work. You know what I mean? And so I think the great thing about podcasting and everything is I know that's our ultimate destination. That's where we'll ride off into the sunset,
right?
Whatever version of it that it is. And I'll always work. I'll always put content out there. And I think we're lucky enough that we have a base that a certain percentage of them will always be sort of interested in consuming it. So we're lucky.
Yeah.
And, with these, I've been doing these book signings. It's cool, and we've actually been hearing this for years. Some people will come up to us, like 35-year-old guys, and they'll come up and, I've been listening to you since I was in the 7th grade. And they're a 35-year-old guy. Like,
I know.
My dad used to drive me to school.
Yeah, my dad used to listen to you guys is one of the most humbling. It's appreciated, but it's also like, fuck.
Yeah, it's over.
Right.
But
if you actually look back on it, it's kind of an honor. It's like your dad is actually still listening. Now he's like a 60-year-old man, and you're like a 35-year-old guy with 2 kids. So your audience kind of grows with you.
Sure.
When we started out, we were these kind of frat boys having fun, music, and all that stuff. And it's not to say that that's not within us, but that had a different sound, and now all of these people have kind of grown up with us as we've had kids. I mean, today Jason did a segment for about 10 minutes. He's always Mr. Melancholy about his kids coming back from school, but in the blink of an eye, they're going to be gone, and he's going to be an empty nester
so he's
again.
sad.
Sad Jason Bishop is riveting radio. And so
normally he's only sad when he loses a parlay.
Right, but it's kind of
misses a free trip to Pebble.
I think it's relatable, and just knowing – the personalities. Look, I can't speak for Jason or John or here, but I just know Eric loves it. Like, I know when we started out, going back to that first cable access show, especially Eric and I, we we did that show, and it was a light bulb moment for us. It was like, he would have been fine. He would have been probably coaching high school basketball and a counselor, and he would have had a fine life. And I'd be practicing along, would have had a fine life. But when we did that very first show, it was like, we're having fun.
Yeah.
And yes, it's a job, but we're 4 friends doing something that's fun. Day to day, you may not think about it, but like when you look back on it with the book, it's like, yeah, that stuff's pretty cool.
Well, I'm glad that you paid a stipend to your colleagues for the book, even though they did nothing. It may be an honorarium, because Andy Poland once wrote a book, DC Sports List, wanted me to write a list for him and offered no pay whatsoever.
0.
And I said, go fuck yourself on Get Out of My Face Street. And he didn't like that I turned him down. He was like, everyone else did it, Zabe. You didn't want to do it. I'm like, of course not. Write your own book. And I was only looking for a free lunch like this today.
Believe me, it's not that much. But, even Jason gave me 2 pictures in the book. You get to see Jason Bishop playing high school basketball at DeMatha, which almost nobody has seen out there.
Really? He keeps that close to the vest, huh? I love it. Guys, thanks for coming.
No, thank you.
Dave,
Appreciate it.
Right,
I didn't even know the show started, so I guess the show's
ending. Yes, right.
We can eat. Appreciate it.
So what happens now? Is the food free or do we pay someone?
Of course not. They send you a bill.